U.S. buildup of warships and fighter jets tracked near Iran. The world's largest warship appears to be heading towards the Middle East as Washington continues to pressure Iran over its military program and recent deadly crackdown on protesters. BBC Verify confirmed the USS Gerald R Ford passed through the Strait of Gibraltar towards the Mediterranean on Friday. Verified photographs taken from land in Gibraltar show the aircraft carrier in the strait with a Moroccan mountain range in the distance. Ship tracking data also confirmed the USS Mahan, one of the destroyers in the warship strike group, passed through the strait. The Gerald R Ford had briefly broadcast its location off Morocco's Atlantic coast on Wednesday and is believed to be traveling to the Middle East, where another U.S. aircraft carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln, was tracked earlier this week. U.S. and Iranian officials met for a second round of talks in Switzerland earlier this week, where progress was reported to have been made. President Donald Trump said on Thursday, "The world will likely find out within the next 10 days whether the U.S. will reach a deal with Iran or take military action." It came after the Abraham Lincoln was identified in the Arabian Sea, around 240 kilometers, 150 miles, off the coast of Oman, in publicly available images captured on Saturday by the European Sentinel-2 satellites. The warship had not been seen since it reportedly entered the region in January, though it had been crossing the open sea where satellite coverage is limited. Military assets on land are more visible and frequently captured on satellite. BBC Verify has now tracked 12 U.S. ships in the Middle East. The Abraham Lincoln, a nuclear-powered Nimitz-class carrier, together with 3 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, forms a carrier strike group, plus 2 destroyers capable of carrying out long-range missile strikes and 3 specialist ships for combat near to the shore that are currently positioned at Bahrain Naval Station in the Gulf. 2 other destroyers have been seen in the eastern Mediterranean near the Suda Bay U.S. base, and 1 more in the Red Sea. We have also been following the movements of large numbers of U.S. aircraft to both European and Middle Eastern airbases, including F-35 and F-22 fighter jets, KC-135 and KC-46 refueling tankers used to support the long-range movement of other aircraft, E-3 Sentry Command and surveillance aircraft designed to coordinate large-scale operations, C-17A heavy-lift military transport aircraft used for delivering troops and cargo, Navy P-8A patrol and reconnaissance jets used for long-range anti-submarine warfare, C-5M strategic transport aircraft, the largest in the U.S. Air Force, used for personnel and cargo. How has Iran responded? In response to recent U.S. military movements, Iran has carried out its own show of force. On Monday, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, launched a maritime drill in the Strait of Hormuz, located in the Gulf between Oman and Iran. The exercise saw IRGC Commander-in-Chief Maj Gen Mohammad Pakpour inspecting naval vessels at a harbor before missiles are seen launching from a ship, the IRGC-linked Tasnim news agency reported. The strait is considered one of the world's most important shipping routes and a vital oil transit choke point. Around a fifth of the world's oil and gas flows through the strait, including from Karg Island, Iran's main oil export terminal. Pakpour was seen flying over the island in a helicopter in the report showing Iran's latest military maneuvers. Footage broadcast by Iranian state TV on Thursday also showed planned naval drills in the Gulf of Oman with Russia, which involved a simulated ship rescue operation. Fars news agency, which is affiliated with the IRGC, claimed that operational units from both Iran's regular Army's Navy and the IRGC Navy took part. How does it compare with Venezuela and Operation Midnight Hammer? Military intelligence expert Justin Crump told BBC Verify that the current U.S. military preparations in the Middle East show more depth and sustainability than its maneuvers ahead of the seizure of former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in January, or the operation carrying out airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities last June. They all feature a carrier strike group and several destroyers operating independently. However, the U.S. deployed its assets in Venezuela and Iran last year under quite different circumstances. The U.S. deployed the Gerald R Ford to the Caribbean ahead of its strikes on Venezuela, one of 8 warships we tracked in the region at the time, though it used fewer aircraft as it could easily send jets from surrounding U.S. bases on America's mainland or from its base in Puerto Rico instead. The U.S. also deployed amphibious assault ships within the Caribbean, which can be used as launch platforms for helicopter operations, as was seen with the capture of Maduro. But Venezuela's military is generally seen as less capable of defending itself or retaliating against the U.S. When the U.S. struck Iran last year in Operation Midnight Hammer, which targeted Iran's nuclear facilities, it was attacking a country with a much more powerful military than Venezuela. Iran's military is capable of hitting U.S. bases across the Middle East. The recent buildup in the region more closely resembles that seen during Operation Midnight Hammer. The U.S. had 2 aircraft carrier strike groups in the region, 5 destroyers placed in the Mediterranean and Red Seas, and 3 combat ships in the Gulf. It had also moved squadrons of fighter jets and refueling aircraft from the U.S. to Europe. But the B-2 stealth bomber flights that were used to hit the Fordo, Isfahan, and Natanz nuclear sites actually took off from U.S. bases in Missouri. Crump, chief executive of risk and intelligence company Sibylline, said the buildup of U.S. warships and aircraft, as well as 8 existing airbases in the region, would allow it to conduct a fairly intensive and sustained strike rate of about 800 sorties a day, with the aim of rendering any Iranian responses ineffective. What we are seeing isn't just strike preparation, but rather a broader deterrent deployment capable of being scaled up or down, he said. This means it has more depth and sustainability than the force packages arranged for either Venezuela or Midnight Hammer last year. It's designed to sustain an engagement and counter all potential responses against U.S. assets in the region and, of course, Israel. Additional reporting by Barbara Metzler, Ganche Habibiazad, Thomas Copeland, E.Ma. Photos leaked to BBC show faces of hundreds killed in Iran's brutal protest crackdown. Mortuary videos show how deadly Iran crackdown has become, tracking buildup of U.S. military planes and warships near Venezuela.